APNU AFC promised more jobs and a good life. Instead, we lost 30,000 jobs. Taxes went up, people are less safe, and cost of living skyrocketed. Now, after 4 years of neglect and corruption, the APNU AFC gang are coming with more empty promises, only cause they need you now. We are smart. Fool me once, shame on you. This time, we will not be fooled by your sneaky fake news, APNU promises. We vote in PPPC to get Guyana working again.
Good evening and welcome to Square Talk, and I'm happy to be with you this evening, Monday, the 24th of June 2019. And of course, we're going live via Freedom Radio, the People's Progressive Party Civic Facebook, and also we are going live via NTN TV and radio on Facebook. I will be taking you through this evening with the most topical issues, and of course we are in a situation in this country in which the government is totally scared of elections. They have been employing all sorts of delayed tactics. They have been running. You've ever seen rats being cornered, how they behave? They run and scatter all over the room, and they try to exit their way through all sorts of holes. And when it becomes a situation where they are unable to escape, they turn back on you. So this government is behaving like rats in a room, cornered rats. And the David Granger administration is refusing to have its cabinet resign after the CCJ ruling on June 18, which clearly says that the government is illegal, that the government has been illegal ever since 21st of December 2018, and that the government, the cabinet ought to have resigned, and the elections ought to have been held by March 21st, 2019. We have seen them refusing all sorts of delayed tactics, all sorts of crooked excuses to avoid going to the elections. This is the David Granger who claims that he has the highest popularity in Guyana, and it is the same David Granger and his government that is refusing to adhere to the Constitution, refusing to face the electorate because of what faces his government, a stinging defeat. The government had fallen since December 21st, and this David Granger, the same person who many people believe is a gentleman and has possessed values and characteristics of a good leader, is behaving in this way and in this manner. And we've seen them day by day for who they are. David Granger is the person who heads this government, and we've seen them for who they are, just what they are. And if this man, David Granger, could publicly declare that the person he admires most was a dictator, an absolute dictator, then one has to wonder, or don't even wonder at all. We know what the conclusion of that is. How will he behave? This man didn't publicly declare he admires Mahatma Gandhi or a Martin Luther King or a Nelson Mandela. And so we are seeing him for what he is, to his true colors. And so the government scatters all across the room like cornered rats. And we have an obligation to make them adhere to our Constitution. Our Constitution is the highest law of the land. And we have every right to obey the Constitution. When one looks at the behavior of this government, and why does it want to hang on? not just for the sake of hanging on, but certainly to continue the rave of theft and thievery and corruption that we see on a daily basis taking place by this government. And all the ministers and every one of them are on a hustle, a serious hustle, and it is much to the dissatisfaction of the majority of Guyanese. And it's a hustle that swindles away our monies as taxpayers. It's a hustle that put monies back into their pockets and that of their friends and family, a small cabal and clique of people in under this government. And we have a right to ensure that they do not get away with this. Granger's government is totally in violation of the Constitution. It is an illegal government. It is trying to hang on to power at all costs in a most desperate manner. It is trying to steal more money. It is trying to fill their pockets. And of course, not forgetting the incompetence, the dunces that parade the corridors of government. Absolute dunces, like the state minister of state, don't even understand what her role and function is. Don't even understand what what our court system is like. Don't understand that the CCJ is part of Guyana's ranking in the court system, but makes silly and stupid comments about how the CCJ cannot dictate or rule or say anything on Guyana. This is an absolute absurdity. And this minister, with some, if she has any decency, like the few others who have been declaring war and all sorts of nonsense, should at least apologize. But we have so many instances of blunders under this government. It is as if this government exists to make mistakes, exists to be incompetent, exists to be corrupt. And it is our duty to let our voices be heard, to raise our voices against these transgressions, because we are dealing with a bunch of hustlers, we are dealing with a bunch of dictators, we're dealing with a bunch of corrupt people and people who are in flagrant violation of our Constitution. And the David Granger government is illegal, absolutely illegal. And the only reason for which they exist in government is to be able to hold the elections. And having been declared illegal by the Caribbean Court of Justice, having validated the no confidence motion, that being the CCJ, this government needs to name the elections date in keeping with the Constitution, the 3 months time frame of the Constitution, and to make sure that we go to the polls and to quickly get rid of this embarrassment called a David Granger government. And let me say this, that we have on our hands a situation in which when the discovery is made, we will see all of the wickedness of this government, because it is not yet all told. It is not yet all revealed. And we need in this country to raise our voices against this illegal government. They're hanging on and holding on to a falling branch, and they will soon fall. They have fallen by the no confidence motion, and on their hang-on desperation, they will soon fall. They need to get out of office. We need them out badly. And I say we, not me. I am talking about, I'm representing and I'm making an expression that is quite one of the electorate of this country. There are many people whose life depends on these elections, because we've all discovered since the 2015 elections that we have a government that has never adhered to its promises, have never adhered to the promises they made. In fact, never delivered on the promises they made. A much better way to put it. They have never been sympathetic to the ordinary man and people who are barely trying to eke out a daily living. It is taxes upon taxes, over 200 tax increases on the backs of poor people and people of this country ever since getting into power. A government who never told us that they will raise their salaries to 50 and 100%, and they did that after the elections. Didn't raise people's salary to the level they claim they will do during the elections, but raise their own salaries. They never told us they'll be thieving, like thieving is going out of style, but we see what has been happening. All of the transgressions, all of the corruption, all of the thievery under this government by ministers and their friends and family. They never told us that we will be inundated with blackouts. They never told us that they will be inundating and they will be executing on a daily basis. The level of incompetence that is unmatchable. That is unmatchable. But we see them in absolute, in a way that is totally incompetent. And I'm saying they continue to make a mockery of our Constitution. Time is up. Mr. Granger and acolytes, time is up. Time is up. The CCJ ruled. You try to delay the process from the time of the no confidence motion, and we see today the time is up. And this stupid another delay tactic about house to house registration. Let me say this. I've seen some people cling on to this silly excuse about house to house registration. I want to warn citizens of Guyana, people of Guyana, doesn't matter which side you support. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in you safeguarding yourself, not repeating the nonsense for an excuse by this government, not setting yourself up to look foolish and to done away with your little credibility or integrity that you have or possess. This is a silly excuse about house-to-house registration. We all know that this list that currently exists, though it needs refreshing, and it was valid up to April 30th, mainly by a procedure in the Constitution, renders it invalid at the time, but it is could always be refreshed by either a continuous, by the claims and objection. And this is what has been happening for years. The 2015 elections, you didn't have a new list, a house to house that brought a new list rather. Local government elections, people voted and were on the list as a result of a period of continuous registration for local government elections. And we had local government elections twice after 2015. And none of the parties complained that the list was bad. But here it is, genius, David Granger government, decides that the list is suddenly bad. And the list, all sorts of description they have given to the list, a whole bunch of lies, a whole bunch of falsehood. And we need to stand up, and we should never allow ourselves to be set up. Persons who have not been on the list in the claims and objection period can then apply to have their names on the list. Visit the GCOM Center and have a registration of their particulars. That's easy. You can have a claims And then you can have objections to those who should not be in the list, such as persons who have died, etc. So we have a government that is illegal, is so desperate, is hanging on to power at all costs, and they seem to be making all sorts, in fact not seem, they are actually making all sorts of silly excuses. But we know with our strength and the strength of our voices that this government will succumb to the pressures that we will bring on, because at the end of the day it is an illegal government. The government must respect the court ruling, and the government must call the elections within the 3 months. Of course, I'll be taking your calls, but before I do so, let me go to a footage from the leader of the opposition today addressed this matter after the hearing on the consequential orders by the CCJ. I have the first footage for tonight's program, and we will listen and then come back and open up the telephone lines.
Them that we do have clarity on lots of issues, and the first is that this government is illegal as we speak. The moment the Court of Appeal, the CCJ ruled that the no confidence motion was validly passed, that immediately meant that the government as of March 21st of this year was illegal. The only way they can change the legal status is by fresh elections. So from now until those elections are held, the government will remain illegal. And therefore, all their acts that they commit, anything that they do that would of a nature that is outside of the holding of elections would be deemed illegal by a new PVP government. So
the government is illegal. The David Granger's government is illegal. It has been defeated by a no confidence motion on December 21st, 2018. The government has fallen. The cabinet ought to resign. The CCJ has ruled, the final court for Guyana has ruled that the government is illegal. We ought to have had elections by March 21st. The government is on borrowed time right now. The government right now has been illegal, and the government needs to hold elections. And the elections ought to be held within the 3 months. And that is the position. And we have every right as Guyanese to call on the government to raise our voices, to prepare our pickets and other form of peaceful actions to ensure that the government of David Granger comply with the Constitution. And that should be the focus of every single decent-minded Guyanese. We now open up the telephone lines. The number is 226-3310. We ask you to turn down your volume as you attempt to get through to us here at the studio. And we seem to have the first caller here on line. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Not so much a good start. All right, so the telephone lines are open, and don't forget we're going via Facebook, the Freedom Radio Facebook page. We're also going live via the People's Progressive Party Civic page, and we're also going live via the NTN TV Radio Facebook. So we have a caller here. I could see him. Good evening.
Good evening, Kwame.
Yes, good evening.
You know, the old saying that a drowning rat holds on to his straw.
Yeah, I believe it.
We got the 1973 election. Who got them three, who passed the order for them three youths in Sambasitapur village to be shot and killed?
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I remember that history. Yeah. So
Remember that history good. This is the kind of government that we have to deal with. We got to be very careful with them.
yeah, but it is not just. Well, of course, we have to be careful. We have to be concerned, but we all have to make sure that we have actions that brings pressure on the government. They're already under pressure. They're already buckling. That's why you hear a lot of nonsense coming out of their mouths. But we have to intensify the pressure to make sure that they comply with our constitution. It's not an if or a but. It must be as a matter of necessity that this government comply with our laws. They can't be made to continue to breach our laws.
No, this way we call on our people, our supporters, to come together and be in full support against the government.
Right, and we're going to do this absolutely peacefully as we are accustomed, as being the tradition of the PPP. We're not the ones that believes in the violence and so forth. Peaceful, and we can bring the pressure.
The PPP never lose an election yet.
Yeah. All right, good. Thank you very much for coming through. And we all calling on the international community, the diplomatic corps and other members that make up the diplomatic community of Guyana. We are asking you to please have your voices sound in the direction of the David Granger government, the illegal government, and to make sure that you institute sanctions, that you put in place sanctions that will have the government at least try to make them compliant, or their actions compliant with the Constitution. We have seen in other countries where the diplomatic corps, the international community, has brought sanctions on illegal governments and dictators who tend to violate the Constitution and the rights of people. And this is a violation of our rights as Guyanese. The right to have elections in keeping with the constitutional mandate. And so we call on the international community to take note and to act accordingly as they have done in other parts of the world. Good evening.
Good evening. 1990, PPP had the opportunity for call election and then call it till 1992. Why is it Barrett has been in such a rush? Barrett can't be president again in this country.
The point is, besides Barrett being president, the point is that at the moment you have an illegal government spearheaded by David Granger. They have to hold elections as specified by the courts of the CCJ, and the president ought to comply with the Constitution. This is not about Barrett Jagdi on the PPP. This is about us as Guyanese standing up for what is right, adhering to our highest law, the Constitution of Guyana. It is not about Kwame Mc Coy, Barrett Jagdi, the PPP, or you. It is about standing up for the right of our country. What legacy do we want to bequeath to our children?
You understand? You don't understand? You understand? It's not about me, Barrett Jagdi, or nobody. It's about the Constitution, and it's about the people of the country. For 23 years, the Constitution and the people of this country suffer. And the PPP government.
Really? Did the government of the People's Progressive Party, Civic, ever refuse to hold an elections? Did the government of the People's Progressive Party, Civic, ever been fallen by a no confidence motion? Was the government proroguing Parliament is a legal option provided for in the Constitution of Guyana? It was never an illegal act. It's a provision within the Constitution that allows a president or a government to use it as an option. And it was used as an option. Elections were held, and therefore we complied with the Constitution of Guyana. There was never a case in which this People's Progressive Party, Civic, ever refused to comply with the Constitution of Guyana. And so you need to get your facts together, stop misleading yourself, and bring the facts to bear. We have never refused to have an elections and to be using the sorts of delay tactics as we've seen over the many months of this illegal David Granger government. Good evening.
Good evening, Kwame.
Yes.
The government needs to realize that we young people are not stupid. And we need election. We need election. It shouldn't be tomorrow. The government needs to realize he fooled us a lot, and we will not intend to sit there and take fooling anymore. We will stand up for right, and I wish if the opposition leader should hold a protest and let's take the street.
Yes.
Protest for our right, and the government has to come out. We don't need them anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we continue to listen to our viewers across the country in 226-3310. And of course, I'll take you to the second piece of footage by the leader of the opposition talking about the situation today again. So I'll go to that footage now, and then we come back. We'll take your calls again.
So effectively, they've had a 6 months grace so far, and we are not going to tolerate any continued violation of the Constitution. So we will insist on elections being held within 3 months, consistent with our Constitution. And when I meet with President Granger, that is a non-negotiable. What is also non-negotiable too is us going back to Parliament to extend the life of this government. That's non-negotiable. Those two things are.
And so, yes, we are not going to have this government continue to breach the Constitution. They need to call the elections in 3 months. That is what the Constitution meant. Now that the entire process of the court has been exhausted, we've had the highest court, Guyana's highest court, that being the CCJ, ruled in this matter. We need to have the elections within 3 months. Good evening. Hello? So the elections need to be held. 670-8802 is the number that call. That of course use offensive language on this program. 670-8802. Unbecoming behavior. I will call your number out again. 670-8802. People must know who these people are. And of course, this is the offensive caller just now. And we will keep, because the Broadcasting Authority, look, don't let me go there now, but we'll come back to that another time. We'll continue to take your calls. 226-3310 is the number to call, but nothing that you say, no type of intimidation or threats will cover me or prevent me or deter me from doing what I consider to be a civic duty, an important task in bringing facts and bringing situations, explaining situations, and highlighting the problems of this country. It is absolutely important. And I believe that there should be more like Kwame Mc Coy, because we need to speak up for our rights. We need to always remember that this country is bigger than all of us, and that the Constitution of God is bigger than all of us. And that we all need to, if we need to ensure that our children grow up in the best society, grow up in a way and manner in which they can pattern their behavior off of the right type of behavior, then we must insist that this David Granger government, this David Granger illegal government, do the right thing. And the right thing is, first of all, to have the cabinet resign, as it ought to have since December 21st, to have the government call elections, the president call elections within the 3-month period as stipulated by the Constitution, and to have the necessary things in place, and the GCOM. And now we've seen why Mr. Patterson was placed there. Mr. Patterson was placed there as a friend, as a confidant of the president, unilaterally appointed, which the CCJ strike down as an illegal appointment, flawed appointment, And we now understand why he was there, to do all the wicked things that he has been doing as chairman of the Elections Commission. And the man has no decency, absolutely none. Imagine after the CCJ making its ruling, he would say he hasn't even considered what action he should take. A former judge, and certainly out of place, absolutely out of place. Patterson should be ashamed as an 85-year-old man. How does he want to be remembered in Guyana? As a crooked individual? He needs to resign. We should be seeing his resignation in the Starbuck News by tomorrow. Mr. Patterson, allow some decency to prevail and don't make yourself much more than you've already been making it described as the folly. And so we will continue to take your calls on 226-3310, and we have here, the calls seem to be coming so slowly this evening, but we will have okay, so while we wait your calls, we have another caller here on the line. Good evening.
Good evening, Kwame.
Yes, good evening, sir.
I try hard the time, but I'm sorry for saying this.
Okay.
This government we have present right now, or illegal government as we say it, is a recurrence of the Burnham regime. Dictatorship.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention, reminding us about the regime of Forbes Burnham, which is the regime of the PNC. And of course, we will continue to take your calls, and we have another caller here in the line. Yes, good evening. Yes, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Respected SUP, long live the dog. We are in a very serious time right now
Yes.
in relation to the Constitution. And if the politicians that are in power right now can't respect and obey the politicians, how could the citizenry do the same?
I agree with you.
But secondly, the ruling of the CCJ, there are two ministers that made statements in relation to the CCJ's ruling. They forgot about the Treaty of Chaguaramas, or the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, matter of fact.
I don't think they know what is that.
Oh, so how is it that they are in positions as ministers and questioning people's qualifications?
Well, every day you see in this government,
But they question that.
every day you see in this government a display of arrogance, incompetence.
Level of incompetence. The Constitution is the highest art in any land. Of any other country, the Constitution is the superior law. Why can't we respect them?
Yeah.
I am not affiliated with any party, but I'm looking at the facts as a citizen and as a young individual in Guyana. How could we respect the politicians if they have no respect for our laws that's supposed to be protecting the citizenry?
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Thirdly, I'm here to impose a program, but I want to know something. Where are the young people that they're thinking about that are involved right now? Where are the young people?
Who young people they spoke of? I
All young individuals are supposed to be paying attention as to what's going on right now in this country.
Okay, I hope they're watching.
Mr. Granger saying that they respect young people and thing, right?
Yeah.
How is he the only eligible candidate as the presidential for the PNC? He's the only eligible candidate right now.
I guess he feels young.
Oh, but they're talking about young people,
Right.
right? We need for the politicians to respect the laws that govern every individual. And I want to say something in the public right now, and I hope that they can maximize it. Let them know something. That there's a government of the words of Abraham Lincoln. It's a government for the people, by the people.
Yeah. I know.
This is not a government that's freely elected and that's what they want. We looking,
Yeah.
we are observing, and every day there's corruption every single day.
Yeah. All right, caller.
Nobody ain't come out and address the issue with the damning allegations about the police force and the corruption that is going on right now.
With the Granger boys.
Oh, yeah, no, the Granger boys says, look, it appears so. It appears like that. That is the reality that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I am seeing that.
All right,
How could you be talking about investigating and you get the same set of people that did corruption investigating the same set of people? How does it make sense?
Yeah, I know. Thank you very much. I do appreciate your comment.
One more point.
Yeah.
The law is never ambiguous. There is no ambiguity in the laws. It is clear. The laws are clear. And the Chief Justice, the chairman for the CCJ, made it clear today to the lawyer of the government. The Constitution is what they represent. They don't enforce anything. They're just representing and upholding the Constitution. It can't be changed just like that. It can be changed from the people like Guyana got represented.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Some very good points. Thank you very much for coming through, caller, and we'll continue to take your calls. And you see how the Attorney General today misled the CCJ by suggesting that the leader of the opposition was reluctant and was negligent in reaching the President David Granger in time for today's hearing. And that's an absolute falsehood, because what occurred, the President wrote a letter through Mr. Harman, the Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency, inviting him to a meeting after today's hearing, without even specifying a specific date, even after. So this is how they try to twist things. But we'll continue to take your calls. We have another caller here on the line. Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Kwame.
Yes, good evening.
I have 2 points to make.
Go ahead.
No. Am I on the air?
Yes, you are on the air. Yes.
Now, 2 points I have. Now, in the previous government, right, when the some of the ministers their visa were revoked by the Americans.
When what?
Right? Their visa were revoked when they had any discrepancy, even the commissioner of police. Okay. Why not now that the Americans don't revoke some of these ministers that's questionable their visa?
Well, I would like to know that myself, and I think many of us would like to know. That's why I called just now in the international community to pay attention to the situation, as I'm absolutely confident they are. But really to get to the level where they can implement sanctions on this illegal government.
And secondly, now, listen to Mr. Williams talking about forthwith. The President wrote Mr. Jagdew. Is that so? Until Friday or so thereabout, he wrote the originally, until he will meet on Monday.
No, not on Monday. He said they will meet after Monday. After Monday.
That's good. And but I'm saying that forthwith he wrote that he never responded.
Yeah, which is...
These people are so liars. You know, liars.
Yeah.
And I hope the US and the President and the European Union are looking at these people really bare-faced.
Yeah. All right, caller. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, caller.
We'll continue to take your calls in 226-3310, and we seem to have another caller here on the line. Good evening. Could you turn down your volume, please? Yes, go ahead. Hello?
Yes. And just let me turn this volume down here, please.
I hope you don't take all night to do that.
No.
Go ahead, please. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
We got a big stinking dirty president.
All right, just temper your language.
I hope the Jati wonder, right? And go home, we fed up and just goes to them, right?
Yeah.
All of them, there is a part of their people, huh? All of them living for our life. We just go to them, we want to know. 1 minute, 2015, thing they use, where they get forward, they can't work back for the elections this time?
Yeah. All right. That's it. We want to say thank you very much for coming through. So 226-3310 is the number to call. Let's continue to listen to our viewers across the country. While we wait another call, let me go to the fourth footage. I have a footage to play for you here. another one. In fact, the third one, Randy. Let's go to that, and then we'll come back. We'll take some calls. So while Randy is queuing up that footage, I think I might have confused him by calling for the fourth instead of the third. Yes, let's take this call, and then we'll go to that footage. All right. Good evening.
Hey, good evening.
Yes. Okay.
I want to know, good night to you.
Good night.
I want to know that Mr. Granger, in a investigate after the use of story one, Mr. Granger dead banks after the use of.
If he what?
Investigate after the use of story and he leaves it down. Why he leaves it down?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Because when you realize that it's his people like you surveillance, he leaves it down.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So he can't think about it anymore. You said Jack Day at one time, and when he cannot find that not Jack Day, these people them.
Yeah.
So, alright, thanks a million and good night.
Thank you very much for coming through. So we go to footage insert 3. Again, the leader of the opposition.
Made, but to my surprise, his Attorney General then misleads the Caribbean Court of Justice and make it look as though the lack of meeting thus far is a result of my reluctance to meet, when the President himself had pointed out in his letter to me that the meeting should take place after the consequential orders have been made. So this is misleading, the Attorney General misleading the Caribbean Court of Justice. And therefore, we've seen this happen over and over again. This is another ploy to confuse and delay the courts. So I'm not surprised that the court.
Yes, so the tactics, look, sometimes it's laughable, but in the most serious way, nevertheless, because we have a government that is absolutely desperate, and a government that doesn't seem to care about adhering to our constitution. We've had breaches, procurement breaches of our law, breaches of our procurement laws. We've had breaches of all sorts under this government in 4 short years. And we, the people of this country, need to put a stop to it. Good evening.
Hey, Kwame, good night.
Good night, sir.
I find the liar lack. Barry Javier just did something. What is the result of this lie? He should have brought this to the attention of the court. And the court itself, the Caribbean court, is lacking in resources, because they should have had the people doing these investigations to know that the president sent the letter, didn't name a date, and it would be after they would have the consultation. So I find this whole thing very puzzling. The PPP lie didn't enforce a lot. As a matter of fact, we talk a little, and between the Attorney General and the other sectors, talked a lot. So that's one point. Give me a little chance. This whole administration is like a trickard. Granger is the man who needed trickard. You always got around them. Well, I bet you got a lot of other people who say, you're going to win, you're going to win. That's the ministers, and this is what he's not disciplining any of his ministers. As a matter of fact, he seems to be gaining, like the other men, when they win, you get something from the people who tell you, I bet not to give them something. So this whole thing, it's a trickery, man. The whole, it's not. As a Guyanese, some of us feel so bad that we're Guyanese. When we hear our own people, some of us have given our life to this country. And to see the ignorance, look at Karen. For a doctor, she doesn't, and then she's Minister of Foreign Affairs, doesn't know, what implications of what she's saying. And don't talk about these things. She come up from the back down, but one expects she will bring back down rubbish. Thank you very much.
All right, good. Thank you very much for coming through. 226. Not that everyone, not back down people necessarily are as dumb as we have seen in the particular person. So I don't want it to be said. But Anyway, so we have another caller here on the line. Good evening.
Good night, Kwame.
Yes, good night.
Night, dear viewers. Why is your viewers attention a little bit fast? These people, this government take for them doing, why your viewers fast? It's one trick in that is a dictator thing in that in them blood. So the land of the thing through land, it will show the people that is my age and below, like 45 and below, that who really is these people. Remember the elder people don't know who is these people. So the land of the thing through land, I want the viewers them don't get past it. They can't get past it. To show who these people is, and instead of losing one election, they will lose like 4 or 5 next election. That was not this corruption to when them the thing what happened in the country. Nobody want back. So let me clear up a bit more. Yeah, hold up. And the judge will rule and you get out, get rid of it. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you very much, caller. Of course, I like the spirit of your presentation. Of course, you rallying us to be patient and, of course, to rally. But the inevitable is there, and the inevitable is that the government, this illegal David Granger government, knows it is heading for a defeat. That's why they're scurrying like rats. You know, when you corner rats, they're trying to scour and they're running all over the place as like drunken rats. And of course, we know that they are incapable of pulling off a success in the next elections. We have another caller on the line. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello. All right, you seem to have missed that one. So we are going to be raising our voices, and I want every single one of us, and this cuts across political allegiance. We have to stand up for the right of this country, for what is right, for what we believe in, and certainly for setting the example for our children and others to follow. We should not be at any moment, any instance, for any iota of reason, allow this illegal government to get away with its deeds, its transgressions, and believe that it can continue and succeed with the flagrant breaches and violation of our Constitution. It is just not right. It is absolutely wrong. We've had the ruling from the CCJ. It is time they give up. It is time they call the elections. And we should not, for the sake of being political, say, oh, but, and but. There should be no but. Let us stand up for what is right. Let us, for God's sake, stand up, all of us, for what is right. We have another caller here in the line. Good evening.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Hi, good night. This is Kwame.
It is.
Yes, on behalf of myself and the majority of people in this country, it is so disgusting for me. I'm an elderly person calling right now. It got the people from the other side of this government, right? Calling on the phone. I got tired. I got to take off my hook off my phone. This is what the fuck, and you could know. And then African for the Chinese white man, you could know the voices, right? First, I got the date, the number, and the day and time and hour they calling on the phone, telling me how Granger, just so you know, how Granger like you and your family to be better than what you are now. And I would like to ask you some questions after the ID number and blah, 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 blah. Now, the last phone call I got was Tuesday gone, right? Just about to have my breakfast because I will be get up in the night and so and have a heavy food, right? Asking me now, right? Asking me for names in the house. And these people calling my right name. I get to say they don't call my
All right. Be careful with
No,
your language.
I have to talk because this is they've gotten my family. My children want to get me on. Mommy, why you taking out the phone? I'm talking. I said this is what's going on, and I want my brothers and sisters to listen what's going on and don't give no information to nobody.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for calling and, of course,
This is what's
expressing.
going on in my day's life. I never seen nothing what this president doing. And got his teeth around him lying. I listen to this no confidence thing today. Right? With this appearances and only this side of people talking. What happened to the other side?
Yeah.
That is advantage. This is sheer advantage. Really advantage.
Yeah, we have to raise our voices and we need to be prepared. You need to be prepared. You need to.
This might hold my body already, but this is advantage. Really advantage.
We need to be.
This is nonsense going on.
Yeah.
I have young children, I have young grandchildren. And if this is what the example is setting on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. But we all have to be prepared to come out and peacefully protest
I want
this
to
government.
have always as a grandchildren. When I say what, in my family got to hear just what Mr. Green did.
Yeah.
My grandmother was a Negro woman.
Okay.
Right?
All right,
This
good.
is not
Don't let's get into
this.
it.
We want betterment, like say betterment. We don't care who go there, but we want honesty. We want an honest government around this country.
And a competent
That's what's
government.
going on with.
Also competent.
Of course! Yeah, here all the people that are coming live on television, we want. That is the example they're setting on television.
All right. Thank you very much for coming through, caller. We have to go. We have other callers. Thank you very much for coming through. Very passionate presentation there by that caller. We'll go to another call, and then I have another footage I want to show you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Kwame.
Yes, good evening.
I'm watching your program and I think the contribution that is made so far has been good, but just my advice on your program, and this is an advice for the PPP, that the president would want to see a opposition leader. And two things we need to bear in mind here is that we have an illegal government, that is one, they have largely no confidence, and secondly, that the GCOM chairman is illegal. And I trust that when the opposition leader reach with the president, those two issues addressed and be fixed immediately.
Yeah, you can be assured that those issues will be addressed. You can be assured, certainly, that there will be no compromise on extending the 3-month period for elections, and there will be no compromise on the chairmanship of GCOM, on that, well, Patterson for sure. So
the issue with Dr. Williams, with his delay tactics and...
who are you talking about just now? Who you call?
He should not be...
The issue with what? With who?
The issue with Dr. Williams.
Oh, Basili.
Yeah,
All
all the stuff that he's going on with, you should ignore him completely. He's a waste of time. Don't even entertain him. The issue with today very misled the CCG. You know, it's another trickery that he's bringing.
Okay.
We need to address that.
All right, good. Thank you very much. So they're so desperate, and they're trying all corners and all techniques to delay tactics to hold on to power. And what? They want to thief more, as if they haven't stolen enough. Look at all the corruption, the scandals. I'll deal with that another night. But look at what has been happening every single day, every week. We hear about the mountains of scandals, and it is not all yet out. There's so many things that we are also investigating. People are sending information. Whistleblowers are coming out against this government. They are volunteering information. And some of it, of course, we have to do some checks to make sure that when it is revealed that it has some credibility and soundness in it. And so that's what we have for a government. And we need our voices to be heard. We need to be prepared to come out in numbers to defend our constitution and to make sure that this government call the elections within the next 3 months. Good evening. Hello, good evening. All right, good. So I'll go to footage 4, and here it is again for you, the leader of the opposition.
Their argument is that a house-to-house registration is a necessity before the elections. We have had general elections in 2015, and we did not have a house-to-house registration between the period 2011 when we had general elections and 2015. It's absolutely false, a fallacy, to claim that house-to-house registration is a necessity for preparing a list to go to general and regional elections. That's false. We have had 2 local government elections after 2015, and we prepared valid electoral rolls, electoral lists, that none of the parties have complained about, and we did not have a house-to-house registration to prepare those lists. So it is an absolute lie to say that house-to-house registration is a necessity before the elections. That's one. And 2, that the law demands it. That is not true. This second point that they seem to make in one of the submissions is that house-to-house registration is the shortest way to get in a credible list. Although
And there it is. Now, this whole thing about house-to-house registration, and we see the bullyism that has taken place in GCOM level with this illegal James Patterson, absolutely illegal, unilaterally appointed buddy of the president. We see how they have been trying to use, to make excuses about the need for house-to-house registration, when there's a clear process. And all the need to do to refresh the list is to implement a claims and objection period. And they all know it. But of course, as we all know, this government, this illegal David Granger government, is trying to hang on to power at all costs. Time is up. You need to make way out. Prepare for your exit. And of course they're preparing for their exit. I'm actually being, preparing for, they're actually preparing for their exit. And that's why the theft is at such high stinking level, because they're all preparing to exit with fat pockets. And so we will continue. We'll take about just a few more calls before we exit tonight's program. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, sir.
You can imagine these people defying the CCJ orders.
Yeah. I could imagine it. It's the PNC.
None of us would change it. They would not move. They are stubborn. Trust me. We're going right back to the born days. Remember, Granger was a part of Burnham. He knows how to go about doing things. He knows what he has to do. He would stand firm and would not move. Trust me, buddy. CCJ is the highest form that we could go at. And if a person could defy the orders, well, the Chinese can't do anything but brother.
All right.
We are right back. We are right back. This is so simple for everyone to understand that the CCJ is the highest forum. We can't go nowhere.
Yeah.
They put the orders and they defy it. They defied it. What more can we do? Tell me, what more can we do?
With the help of the internet.
We would picket, we would go out, we would picket, but
You have to.
they would use the armed forces. They would use the armed forces to do what they have to do.
I have faith.
I'm saying that. I'm saying that.
I have faith in our armed forces. I have faith in our security services. I have faith in the people of Guyana. And I'm saying I'm not throwing up my hands. I'm not giving up. I know that I am on the right track, and we all are on the right track, pressing for the government to do the right thing, to uphold the Constitution.
That this is a frightening situation. That is what I'm trying to say.
But not a situation without remedy. We, the people of this country, have to come out in our masses, do our peaceful demonstration with the help of the international community.
Yes.
We are going to ask them to invite sanctions on them, take away their passport, their visas, prevent them from traveling certain places overseas, make sure that there are no bilateral arrangements with the government, and bring the government to its knees. Not because we want to be capricious, but because we want them to understand that the Constitution is our highest law. And they must listen, they must follow, they must adhere, they must obey the Constitution of Guyana. They need to be punished.
When one side would protest, right? The other side is going to come out, look, they start to go to
and I am not afraid, and you should not be afraid. Anyway, I'll have to go. We are out of program time. The red light is on me. Thank you very much, caller, and I thank you very much, Guyana, for having tuned in this evening. Those who joined us via Facebook, and those who joined us as well via Freedom Radio. Thank you very much for coming through on this program tonight. And of course, I will continue to be to update you on the happenings in Ghana, the most current situation. But as I exit, I want to remind you that the illegal David Granger government continues to hide from elections. It's scared like hell. It's like rats in a room, running, cornered, and of course, they're hanging on to continue their corrupt acts. And we need to, as people, citizens of Guyana, all stand up for the right thing. We need to not say but. We need to stand up because our Constitution is our supreme law. And we need to have anyone that think or actually commit the act of dissing our Constitution to make them an example, to punish them, and to let them know that we are not compromising on our Constitution. So I want to, with those few words, I thank you all for having tuned in, and those who came through the telephone line, I say a very pleasant good evening to you, and until next Monday, God bless you.